I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that change lives forever. Hello, my friend. Anna is here with me, and we actually just had a conversation before recording how I was going to say your name. So why don't you introduce yourself saying your name correctly so that I don't offend you?
No, it's okay. I'm from Colombia, so it's Ana Reina, but people call me Anna. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, we've known each other. You actually started at the college that we both worked at in the Orlando area. I believe you started 2 or 3 weeks after I did.
Yeah. We were part of the new crew coming in 2008. Yeah. It was so much fun. We were just all new, just like, yeah. It was fun.
Yeah. We were just making it up as we went along.
Yeah. Literally. I think
Yeah.
literally, yeah. It was great. It was fun.
There were moments. But I say that because even back then in 2008, we would say, well, is it Anna or Anna? And you're like, whatever you feel like. And so we just had this conversation before we started recording, like, which one do we want today? And whatever one you want, whatever you're comfortable with.
It hasn't changed. Yeah. The accent's different in Colombia. So you guys just can't really get it. So it's like whatever comes close. But usually most people call me Anna. It's easier. Yeah.
Yeah. So we worked together for, when did you leave said college?
2013.
2013. So we worked together for 4.5 years or so. And we had a lot of good times. We went to concerts together. And
you're my concert buddy. You're the one who wanted to go see music all the time. So yeah, it was fun.
What brought you to that college? What were you doing before that? What was your life like?
You know, this is probably one of the big shifts in my life, actually. Speaking of shifting, this is probably one of those pinnacle moments because I had been I've been working in management for artists in the music entertainment industry, and I was a manager. I was touring and putting on events and had a bunch of bands, and it's great. It's awesome. And I remember the band that I was really focused a lot on. It was just a terrible breakup, just an unexpected breakup, and unfortunately, it left me going. I didn't know what to do in my next phase of my life. I was like, I have all this knowledge and wisdom, like, what do I do? What do I do?
How long had you been doing it?
At that point, I had been doing almost 10 years. Of course, I've known about said school and, because it was always on that radar, in that town in Orlando. So, but it never occurred to me to teach there. And then a friend of mine said, hey, they have openings over there. I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me just throw in the hat. I know some people over there. And then I got hired because it was a new degree just opening up. And so it kind of fell in my lap. But that was probably a big shift for me because, I've always known my purpose was to inspire others in some capacity. I always felt compelled to teach. That was like a common thread. Even managing artists, I was always, mentoring them, counseling them, teaching them about the business. So it was just something that just always was natural. And so when I got the job to teach, I've never taught before. I never stood in front of a class. I never did anything like that. And it was just amazing how natural I fell into it. It was just so easy. It was as if it was meant for me to do.
Right. And you were teaching like a marketing class at first, right?
At first I was teaching marketing because my background in college was, years of marketing. And I wanted the artist management class, but someone else at the time was teaching it. And so I was like, I'll just get in and work my way around. And so that's how I kind of started it. But it was great because it was there. I really learned structure of curriculum and how to teach and how to build programs and really share my wisdom and real life stories to make it all real for them. So It was really great because that's where I really found my personal power that I had. Like, that's where I found what I was really gifted to do. That's where I really started leaning into my purpose, my life purpose.
Yeah. I mean, And your students, I remember, connecting with your students or seeing you come back from class and just talking and having those moments in which whatever you said that day truly resonated with a student that was either going to be a future artist manager or was an artist themselves, because we had a lot of students that were musicians or were part of bands, and they were going to school to learn the ins and outs. And it's one thing to read a book, right? It's one thing to search the internet for the top 10 tips of what not to do. But when you have someone like you with 10 years of experience saying, look, here's a horror story that I have for you in which this band chose to do this. Here's what happens. So I just remember those moments of joy that I saw when you were doing that. Of course, there were moments of not so much joy in other times because, that's part of any job, right? The things that we don't love to do didn't always come together with the things that we had to do, right? You need someone to question the status quo or question why we're doing something a certain way. And the answer of just, this is the way we always do it doesn't fly, especially now, right?
I was definitely one of those that pushed buttons and bars and like, why not? But why not? I think I took that rock and roll rebel with me in there. I'm like, but why not?
I think there's value in that rock and roll rebel that you brought to the table. All those moments, even the ones that frustrated you the most, brought you to where you are now. And I think the good, bad, ugly, amazing, all those pieces make us who we are, which is, I think, something that we don't often reflect on, or we don't often take the moment to go, you know what, there was purpose in what I went through. And I think that's true for you because you left and then you went to do something similar on the other side of the country. So what was the next step? So you moved across the country for...
So I moved over across the country because at the time my sister was having a baby and my parents were getting older, and I wanted to be closer to them and just come back home kind of thing. I was being
Right.
pulled to go to the West Coast. And mind you, even though I was teaching and sharing, wisdom and stuff, my spiritual side of me was becoming more prevalent in my balancing of who I was. So I was really starting to look at that kind of balancing of my life, really tapping into the soul, really looking at your purpose, why are you here? What is the bigger picture of what you're here to do? So, and while I was still in Florida, I had met my partner now, my best friend. And we met, I think it was like 2000, 2001. And it was crazy, that connection, because we're completely opposite. We were completely opposite people. And for some reason, our friendship, we just couldn't get away from each other. Like we were just literally magnetically drawn to each other. And we couldn't understand, because the typical type of friendship we would have, you wouldn't think would work out, but
Right.
there was this underlining love for each other and just trying to take care of each other. And we knew that we would be working together in some capacity. And, when you look at the spiritual side of things, you're contracted to people. Some people, use that contract as a soulmate, or they might say it's a twin flame, or a partner, a soul partner, as in like a business partner, a creative, partner. So we realized at that point energetically that we had made some kind of contract agreement that we would do something profound in this lifetime. And of course, you have your ups and downs trying to balance that out in a friendship, but it was something that we couldn't ignore. And I remember I was teaching, and there's certain, programs and, things you put in your birthday and you put in when you were born, astrology charts and stuff. So I put mine in there, and I said I was going to open up a spiritual center.
Really? It was very specific.
It was very specific. I was going to follow a very spiritual path. And I was going to open up a spiritual center. Mind you, this was like in 2001 or two. So I was right in the height of touring and bands
Right.
and things like that. And I was like, whatever. I was just like, what? I was thinking I'm going to run off and be a monk, or, like, I was just like,
right.
I was like,
Yeah,
this
what does
thing
this
is
mean?
broken. This is wrong. Like, what are you talking about? And so I called her and I was like, oh, you got to try this out. You got to try this out. And hers came out the same thing. Granted, we had completely different birthdays, completely different astrology charts, but her kind of said the same thing. And we were like, huh. So we kind of, the seed was planted that we were going to be doing something together, but we just really didn't know
right.
how. So anyway, fast forward, we're going through our, figuring things out. I'm going through my spiritual, connection, and so is she. And we keep getting pulled and pulled. Now, mind you, she's a very powerful, talented, gifted, woman. So she's very highly sensitive and has highly intuitive gifts. So she's a communicator with the divine. So she gets messages and things like that, but she was denying it. And she was, oh my God, people are gonna think I'm crazy. And I was like, that is so cool. Like, you should really like do something with that, and she was like, nah. So anyway, she had to find her path and I had to find my path. But when I moved out to California, I noticed the West Coast was a little bit more open to that kind of, just concept of spirituality,
right. Soul connection.
Yes, energy healing. Because, Florida is still like the Bible Belt, religion, just deep rooted beliefs, a totally different mentality. I mean, over here,
right.
people were more into energy healing, alternative healing, medicine, acupuncture, so it was a different type of life. And so when I was over here, I started seeing that more and more often. And I was like, I called her. I was like, you got to come out here. If we're going to do anything, this is going to be the place for you to do that. And she did. She moved out a year later.
What year was this?
So this was 2014.
Okay. So shortly after you left Florida.
Yeah, she came out and she didn't want to go. She was like, I don't want to go out of California. I'm fine. I have my house here. I have my life here. And I was like, I'm telling you, like, I have this feeling you're going to come and we're going to do something here. And she's like, but I don't know what to do and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know. Just get over here. Like you have this feeling, like gut, that knowing that this is where it's going to happen. And
right.
And so it was, we called the company Soulmanity. And I was still teaching. I was still doing, music and working with musical clients. So I was in this like in between. I didn't want one foot in and one foot out. I was too scared to make the jump, but I was like, and so.
And I think there's a lot of people that live in that space of, I want to do this. I really feel called to do this particular thing, but I also need to have a steady paycheck, or I need to have the comfort of whatever society has told me that I'm supposed to have, so that I can have the things that society told me that I should have. So I don't think that's too uncommon for what you did there.
No, not at all. And the thing is, in my spiritual growth, like, I should know better, but we're all human, we all have that fear, of people believing us. And I didn't want to be some like cuckoo, like medium psychic and people thinking we're trying to, I was like, nah, I don't want that persona. Like I didn't. So, and a lot of people have known me for a whole completely, like you're talking about, music and spirituality is completely different. Like I was like, how am I supposed to transition to that,
Right.
So it was definitely really difficult because I first had to embrace it myself.
Right. You had to, I mean, I don't know how to phrase it, but come to terms with the fact that what you were doing in the music space and the entertainment space, sure, it was fun and it was fulfilling in a way, but I guess your life was kind of driving you, like nudging you. Come on,
my soul was screaming at me. My soul was like, what are you doing? It's time. Let's go. And I'm like, but, and I was like,
it's scary.
It's so scary.
It's scary to put, and I don't want to call it blind faith, but to put, 100% confidence in something that, like you said, that you still had the worry that society was going to think you were this way or that way, or where is your credibility because you've been in the industry over here doing this, that, and the other. So at what point, or what triggered a change for you?
I was working on myself and she was working on herself. And I was like, you know what? You have so much wisdom. You have so much knowledge. And she's, getting messages and downloads and like, and I was learning so much from her. And I was just like, why don't we teach this? Why don't we tell other people about it? Because her purpose was to share it with everyone, to help them in their journey.
Right.
Because she had helped me so much in mine. And I was just like, why don't we teach it? Why don't we create a class? I'm a teacher. We can structure it. We can make curriculum. We can do this. So all that knowledge and information I learned at that self-said school is now helping me build the curriculum that she's doing. So I took all her information. We had journals, mind you, just journals and journals of just notes and readings and writings and connections. And I was like, I can make something out of this. We can teach people how to meditate. We can teach people how to connect. We can teach people to listen to their soul. We can teach people to understand they have guardian angels, And she's like, no, that's so crazy. I don't know. I'm like, just let me do it. I was like, I've got all the outlines. I have all the structure. I have, which brings me to the point where that's why I had to go study and I had to go to a school to learn how to teach, to build this curriculum. So now I'm here. I'm here doing this. So it comes full circle. And so that's what we started doing. And it started off as a website and me still 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So I'm just still going back and forth. My soul kept saying, just let it go. I was being guided, just let that go. If you would give this 100%, you would realize how happy you are. And like, this is really where you're supposed to be. And I guess it was in 2016, 2017, I got fired. They were doing some downsizing and I was let go of. And so it was as if the universe made the decision for me and like, you need to focus on this. And that's what I did. And I was like, all right, obviously there's a bigger power that really wants me to do something. But I had to really look at it this way. Like through your life, you have a common thread, right? There's a common thread in everything. Even with my career in music, I loved inspiring those musicians. I loved teaching them. I loved consulting them. I go to school and I love inspiring those students. I love teaching those students. I loved consulting them, on all my projects. So I had this teaching element, this inspirational element all throughout my life. And it was brought to my attention in meditations, like that's still the same. Like instead of you limiting yourself to just music or to universities, now you can inspire and teach the world, a bigger platform. So it's this evolution within you. And I've started thinking about that. It's like, you're right. You can now inspire people to be the best version of themselves, not just a musician being a best musician, not just a business being the best business. Now you can inspire people to really look within, trust that purpose, and be the best version of themselves. And that felt right. And it finally clicked.
Right. You mentioned meditation. Was that during like your own practice of meditation, or was that something that was structured, or kind of what was that scene like?
It's definitely your own personal meditation. But it's also, with, my best friend, Dr. Katana, she channels, right? So she communicates with the divine. So I would get a lot of encouragement and reassurance through those messages of this is what you really need to do. And once I got fired, it was like, that's it. You have to do this. And so, of course, there was ups and downs. I had my own spiritual, we call it the dark night of the soul, your own shadow work you have to go through. There's a lot of life lessons of really embracing who you are, because in order to teach it, you go through it. You go through that kind of experiences, that you can turn around and help others. So through those years, we built curriculum. We have built classes, and we started off with a website, and we got to a private Facebook group. We have like a following. We were, teaching in different buildings and people and groups.
workshops, I remember.
workshops, yeah, like different things. And so little by little, it began to grow. And little by little, we started seeing it resonate with people. It was doing great. And then COVID hits. It's like, ah. So what was once in person, now we had to shift to online. So we had to make all our curriculum available online, and which was new to us. It was new to a lot of people at the time, and Zoom and all that kind of crazy stuff. So we had to shift again. But the idea was that here I am looking back, and we just launched the Katana Institute, which is an educational platform, and we launched it last year. It's the beginning of our spiritual center, our platform, where we
Wow.
teach different levels of connection, different levels of healing, energy healing, and things like that. So here I am, almost 20 something years later from that reading, saying that I'm going to open up a spiritual center.
Right.
And here we are doing
and it's happening.
that. Yeah. So, but it took a lot of different lessons along the way.
Right. You wouldn't have been able to do it in 2001.
Nope. No way. And even have that life. And then 2008, going to the school, and then, losing and really realizing your true purpose and power. And, now here I am. And so as much as I do miss that scene sometimes, like I still love going watching live music. I still love going to the concerts and stuff like that, and the events. And I'm always catching myself going, oh, they should have done that. They should have done that, but this is just, I didn't really know what joy was. I had a happy life, but I didn't really know what joy was. Like, joy is a different frequency. It's the highest frequency. It's even above love, and I didn't really know what joy was until really embracing this part of my purpose.
Yeah, it's interesting because your story, if you think about it, it's like the universe or whatever was kind of shutting doors in your face and like pushing you to the next level. Like your band that you were managing exploded, right? And then things in the Florida world kind of hit their breaking point for you, and you moved towards your family. And then that job said, we have to restructure. Yeah. And each piece is like, yep, pushing you up. Like, keep going. What are you doing? And, I think a lot of people would not have listened to that. And maybe you didn't listen the first couple times, and maybe it was just happenstance, or maybe you did, and maybe that was intentional. But I think a lot of people, they'll take it personally, maybe in a lot of those cases, and they internalize that what did I do? Why is this happening to me? Yeah. I can't believe that I'm being punished. But maybe if we look at it with different lenses, or we flip our perspective on it, really good things could come from it.
Yeah. We like to call it, we have this class, it's called Reframe, Retrain, and Reclaim. And it's when things happen to you, you need to look at it from a different perspective. So like most people would say, why is this happening to me? Right. So you take the ego out, you take the me out, and you're like, okay, why is this happening? What's the bigger picture? What's the bigger plan? What's happening behind scenes that maybe I'm blinding myself to? And that's hard sometimes to look at that inner reflection and stuff like that. But really learning to take those moments and use it in a positive way, and to look at it as there's something better coming for me. This is a blessing in disguise. And, 9 times out of 10 later on in life, you're like, oh yeah, it definitely was,
Well, reflection is a lot easier than in the moment, right? For sure. Like, what would you say was really that final punch, kick, whatever you want to call, that flipped and was like, I'm all in. Yeah. I'm ready.
So I actually have it with me. I have this, I don't know if you can see it. It's like a reading I had. It was back in 2018, and I keep it in my journal. I carry it with me in my journal. So every time I update my journal, I just move it over. But it was a very profound reading I had that day. And it was basically, to me, like looking back on reading it now, it doesn't seem like it came across. But at that time, it was almost like a very stern warning that you need to get on board or else you're going to miss this boat. Like time is running out, the window is closing. You need to really jump. You need to take that faith. Like this is it, you know?
Right.
And it hit me so hard in the gut that I was like, oh crap, you know, like I've fallen behind. I've been procrastinating. I haven't been stepping up. And it really was like, I felt like it's now or never. You know, you're going to lose what you've started, you know, with Dr. Katana. You're going to, I felt like I was going to be lost in some abyss or something, you know, like it
Right.
scared me enough because people get jolted in their life by different ways, like health issues, car accidents. Like they're like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? So for me, it came through this reading. And I remember this feeling of panic and anxiety. And I was like, I got to change my life. And I changed my whole lifestyle. So, no, food, sugar, no more alcohol, no more surrounding myself with people or environments like that. Of course, in the entertainment industry, there's, parties and
Right.
drugs and alcohol. And I didn't want to be part of that anymore. I just was like, I cut out the media. I wanted to surround myself with just good vibes. And I remember really diving into understanding my purpose and my balance within me. It was like I went through a really quick boot camp of trying to really just get to a place. Like I went through my dark night of the soul. I went through all this shadow work. I went and got a lot of help from a lot of different energy healers to really bring up that past trauma, face that past trauma once and for all. Things I had been avoiding, harboring, things like that. So it was this journey of just complete
You
revolution
went all
within
in.
me. I went all in. I was just like, no, I'm not getting left behind. I'm not, like I freaked out, so I had to show my commitment. And that was the real big turning point. So with it, like it took a year of me I was doing everything I could just to balance myself out and prepare myself. So, I tried all different types of therapies and alternative medicines and ways of really coping with my traumatic stress, because I've had a really troubled childhood. It was very difficult for me. I had a long lasting, challenging relationship with my mom. And I had to heal that. I had to take care of that because it was affecting everything in my life. Those different, because things happen in your life that affect you for the rest of your life. And it was literally blocking me from blossoming into what I needed to do. So,
Yeah, you found the things that worked for you to help with, I don't know if it was diagnosed or any kind of PTSD or just childhood trauma in general. I think people find all sorts of things. I talked to someone a few episodes ago that looked into alternative medicines as well that actually, quote unquote, cured her chronic PTSD. And that's commendable that you went all in to do it. And that was just that one reading that like triggered you. Do you feel like you were before that? Do you feel like you were at the 50% mark and you were doing a
yeah,
little
I was
bit
just
of it?
lazy. I
Okay.
wasn't really like, well, yeah, okay, we'll get to it.
But you were thinking about it.
Yeah, it was definitely there, but it wasn't a priority. It wasn't a focus. And they kept saying, like, let it go, like, let this go. Like, you need to go all in. And I'm like, I'll get to it. Like, I know just going steadily along. I meditate, I'm good, we're cool, but, but it was that
Yeah, check.
reading that I was like, I did this today. I'm a good person today.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it was really that moment where, but I look back and I read it now, and it's nowhere near as traumatic as in that moment. So I don't know if it was the accumulation of energy and personal, I don't know, but it scared the crap out of me, that's for sure.
Well, and I'm sure you were harboring whatever, from your childhood, you were
Yeah,
harboring your experiences in the entertainment industry
yeah,
and teaching and
yeah,
moving and
exactly.
family, and
It's true.
everything was just like bubbling up.
It was like exploding. But, it's, I went to a very special alternative healer who had very psychic abilities, and she focused on PST, PSTD, right? PTSD. She focused on that, and I was recommended to go see her. And it's unfortunate at the time. I just always you just assume that term with military, like
Mm-hmm.
people only they suffer from that. And she kept telling me, it's like, no, you're suffering from that. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't go to war. I didn't shoot people. Like, I just had a rough childhood. And she's like, no, but you're traumatic. It was traumatic enough for you. And, but when you kind of bury it so far down, you begin to numb that feeling. You begin to not look at it that way and just be like, it is what it is. But it was trauma. And so I had to go through a lot of really facing a lot of that. And it was hard because you never want to relive that. You never want to face that. There's a reason why you buried it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a whole
Yeah.
journey. It was
Yeah.
definitely a
And
journey.
you hear that a lot. And I myself have done that and realized after, I lost my mom when I was 8. And grieving her was probably a 20-year period for me, which is a really long time. And what I came to realize towards the end is something similar to what you're saying about PTSD and childhood trauma, is that that was a childhood trauma for me. And that period of time, I didn't allow myself to fully grieve. And what I realized was happening is that all the decisions that I was making through life, I was making those decisions as that 8-year-old child, whether that was protecting myself. And it was probably the same for you, of not jumping into the pool of this, this new journey, because that child was afraid or was protecting themselves. And so I see a parallel there to just in general grief or childhood trauma. And even some of the others that I've talked to on this podcast have similar things in which at that point, whatever was happening at that point in their life, that person was making the decisions until they were ready to move past that. And what I have discussed with people too is that there is no common journey or solution for it, right? Like mine is going to be different than yours, is going to be different than so and so's, but when we find what works for us, we have to honor that 100%
And the
and move
timing
forward
of
with
it.
it.
Yeah. And the timing of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it informs what we do moving forward. So, having lost my mom and then going through 20 years of grief and really just taking forever, in my opinion, looking back to do that, but I know I needed to, that allowed me to, when I had my next big loss, to process it in what I see as the most effective way for me to move through the grief, to be a better human, and the things that we talk about, and not allow that sadness or anger or whatever it was to make those decisions moving forward. So I think for you, it's probably very similar, of
Yeah,
that childhood
definitely.
trauma
No,
was directing you until you were ready.
so, in our practice, we call that subconscious blocks because they're so deeply
Mm-hmm.
embedded since childhood. They're imprinted and harbored within you. So they move from your conscious to your subconscious. And 95% of all our actions, thoughts, decisions are actually coming from our subconscious mind. Okay, that's a fact. That's scientifically proven. So everything we do in life comes from those blocks, comes from that subconsciousness. The sabotaging we do from ourselves is from the traumatic experiences that we've had. So you literally need to go within deep to those subconscious levels to heal it, so that the new decisions and actions that you do don't reflect that kind of trauma. And you need to replace that trauma with love and hope and wholeness and things like that, because then the decisions that you make are completely different, and you're living in a more, a better reality, a better version of you. And the decisions that you're doing aren't made out of fear or resentment or anger and things like that. So
Yeah, you probably see this, that you can't do any of that until you're close to ready. Like, you really have to be willing and ready. In other words, I couldn't tell you 5 years or 10 years ago, you need to do this, that you need to go to the institute that you guys are creating now. You yourself would probably need to be closer to finding that on your own, or being introduced to it and ready to accept it.
That's right. Yeah.
True.
It's very, very true, because you have your free will, and you have, 1,000 people can tell you what you should do, but until you're really willing to embrace and accept it, you won't. And I think when I had this readings, the guides that had came through were like, okay, the only way we're going to get through her is to just like, this is what's going to happen. It's up to you. Take it or leave it. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay. But they knew that was probably the best motivation for me. But then at that time, I was like, okay, then bring what I need to bring, provide for me what I need to do, show me, ways that I can take care of this. Like, I'm open now. I'm ready. And then the healers started coming, the information started coming, the people started coming to help me on that journey, on that path. And
yeah, you went all in.
I went all in. So, but now it's great, because then
good for you.
I know exactly what other people in traumatic experiences need. And when they're ready, we're going to be there to provide that for them. We're going to have this available, that available, these healers on board, or these readers, or these, classes to help you in that healing process.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 2 major subconscious healing classes that are specific in helping you with those blocks. We have conscious healing. We have a lot of different healing classes to help with that process of, really looking within and getting it all out,
You're putting your good out there. You're putting your good to share your journey and what you've learned. I think it's important, and I'm not trying to compare this, but even just these conversations that I'm having on this podcast are very similar, or I hope they're very similar, in a way that whoever's listening, if one person listens and is facing something that they feel that they're all alone and no one else in the world feels this way, that they hear this and go, oh, someone else has gone through this. I don't feel alone.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean we're giving them the solution or any of those kind of pieces, but building a community to know that we are all human and we all have similar emotions at different moments, and there are ways to go through whatever we're going through. So that's kind of my hope here. And it sounds like that's what you're doing for your clients and people that are seeking you guys out.
It's beautiful. I mean, I think we hear the word crazy so many times. I think I'm going crazy, or this is so crazy, or this decision I'm about to make is so crazy. Like, we hear that word all the time. And I've come to realize that it's crazy if you don't do it, because that's really going, if it's fearful, if you're scared of it, it's probably because you're supposed to be doing it. Like it's your ego that's making you afraid.
Unless it's jumping out of a plane.
Yeah. But it's your ego that's really making you afraid. It's the soul that's trying to say, let's do this, And so you have this back and forth, but your soul is your purpose. Your soul is your being. The soul is the reason why you're here. So, listen to the soul and try to put your ego aside of fear and doubt and worry and the bills and the perceptions and societal pressures. But, it's crazy to deny what your true essence is. And so once you go down that path, the way that the universe works, the way this whole thing comes together is, once you commit and start going down that path, the energies and the universe and all that good stuff is like, oh, okay, you're ready? You good? Okay, well, let me give you this. Let me give you that. Let me give you this. Let me give you that. And your path begins, and everything will be provided. It might not be pretty. It might not go smoothly, but when that shift, what you're talking about here happens, it will be provided for. So I think once you get, you owe it to yourself to embrace it, then it will come. But that's the hard part, is that first step. It's just that jump into that shift of, let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah. And to go into it. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate just in, I talked to a mutual friend of ours, Alex, that we used to work with, or I still work with. And his whole thing was, always knowing that music was what he needed to do. And throughout his story, he talks about how, you know, his parents expected him to do this, and then society expected him to go to college to do this, and then he was supposed to do this. All the while, music keeps like yanking him back to like, you need to figure this out in music. And so now he's found this way, kind of similar to you, to be able to share the experiences through teaching, but also now he has the ability to make music his life and find a way to support himself yet also create. And I think that's important to just lean in, I guess, is to be ready that if you keep getting pulled back into that particular area, maybe there's something to think about there. Maybe you should think about it a little bit more and see how you can make whatever it is your purpose.
That's right. I mean, we're given hints all the time. Like it's our internal GPS. It's our guidance. So like when things happen, it's like the universe kind of like putting you back on your, like, no, let's get you back on path. Like, you know, like, so when a door shuts or something unexpected, or you get transferred, or, you know, things kind of, it's like universe going like, no, this is your most beautiful path of living the best life. And, you know, just trust it, you know?
Yeah, and I think the problem is, and you identified it throughout your journey, the problem is that society, we get so stuck on what society is telling us that we need to do, or our parents say that we need to do X, Y, and Z. Or even I was giving you the example, you know, I'm doing another master's degree right now. And in my mind, this master's degree is not necessarily what people would define a master's degree to do, right? So I'm getting a master's degree. I tell someone, what are you going to do with it? What kind of job are you going to get with that? And in my mind, that's not why I'm doing this degree. This degree was for different purposes. This was to expand my mind, to learn more, to reactivate my brain, if you will. And so I've been able, in this instance of going through this graduate degree program, I've been able to take away society's pressure that I have to do something with it. Because why else would you go, right? Society's like, why would you go to school if you're not going to use it?
But I don't know. I think you're doing great at it. I think this is like a nice little gift of yours that you have. So I maybe was introduced to you for a reason. I don't know, but
yeah, it's possible. But I think the whole point is that society, you even said it in your, you didn't want to jump in to Soulmanity because you didn't want people to think you were crazy. You didn't want people to think you were this, that, or the other. Not, you didn't want to go into it because you didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
Right? You believed in it. You wanted to do it, but you didn't want to do it because you thought other people would think something of you for doing something that you really wanted to do.
Yeah, that's right. Looking back on it, like, oh, it sucks. Looking back on that, I'm like, I just wasted so much time. But you know, those, you know, you have to, when I look back, it's like you look at that kind of societal pressure and stuff as a learning lesson to make you a stronger person.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And if you didn't go through those periods in time, your institute and where you guys are now would not be where you are. At least that's how I believe. I feel like all these little markers in your life are part of the plan, are part of what you're supposed to bring to the table at the end of the day.
That's right.
And I mean, even as I don't want to say simple, I feel like that's dismissive, but in my case, having my mom die when I was 8, thinking back, or if someone was like, you know, if you could change history and change it, I wouldn't at this point in my life, right? Because of that moment and all the things that I've done after that moment, I'm who I am right now. And so the same thing is true for you. You know, you had to have those doors slammed, those bands explode, you know, to get where you are right now. If that band hadn't exploded, you wouldn't have been teacher, so you wouldn't have the curriculum development component, right? So I mean,
that's right.
Everything works out. I like it.
Everything works out. And, you know, like a lot of people don't connect the dots, but if you're smart enough and you kind of can connect the dots, you'll see the pattern. You'll see the pattern of what, you know, has led you to where you're at. And so instead of becoming upset about it, some, you know, things that happen in your life, you can look back as with gratitude, you know, that thank God there was someone looking out that led you to where you needed to be. So,
Right. Yeah. Well, my friend, I wish you all the best with this new institute. I'm
yes,
so happy
thank
for you. I
you.
love seeing you in this joy that you talk about. I think
Yeah.
it's infectious in a good way. So thank you for being a part of the life shift.
Yeah, we have graduating students from our institute now, so we are certifying angelic spiritual coaches. So it's pretty cool. So now it's like,
Awesome.
you have your own graduates. So going from like the university to having your own kind of institute with graduates, it's cool. It's very, very cool. So yeah.
Life has come a couple full circles for you. A little spiral going on there.
That's what it is. But yes, thank you. And thank you for offering this kind of platform for people to share their journeys and stories
It's so
and
interesting.
inspiring. Yeah. And inspiring other people to do the same that are watching, just, having the faith to really step into who they are. So,
Yeah, and honor that journey. I think it's important that we realize that we go through things whether we like it or not for a purpose, and if we can kind of use that to better ourselves, then we should do that. Would you agree?
totally agree. Totally agree.
All right, my friend, thank you for being a part of this, and we will see you soon. Well, we won't see you soon, maybe some
Sort of,
point.
kind of, somehow.
You've just listened to the Life Shift podcast. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information about how you can support the Life Shift podcast, please visit www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com. See you next time.